welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're diving into the question that I think is on every business leader's mind,
Yeah.
and that's how do you build a culture of innovation?
Yeah.
How do you do that in a way that actually drives success that lasts?
Right.
Well, we're going to use the story of Harley-Davidson's resurgence to answer this question, and we're going to use the book, The Lean Machine. And, Harley-Davidson, they're known for being rugged,
Right.
classic,
Yeah.
but they're also a powerhouse of innovation.
That's right.
And get this, they actually completely transformed their approach to product development.
And that's really what's so interesting about Harley-Davidson.
Okay.
They were able to make this amazing comeback.
Okay.
And a big part of that was product development.
So then why is that? Why is product development so, it's important,
Yeah.
but why is it like the key ingredient?
Well, the book actually starts out with a pretty wild statistic. And it says that the top performing companies, they generate almost half of their sales and profits from products released in the last 5 years.
Wow. Okay, so almost half of their revenue
Yes.
is from stuff they made in the last 5 years.
Exactly.
That's a lot.
So that means that if you want to stay competitive, you got to be, constantly innovating.
You gotta stay ahead.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And that's really where the story of Harley-Davidson is so interesting and so useful for us.
Okay.
They had some real challenges back in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
but they were able to completely change things around by just totally transforming the way they approached making new products.
Okay. So how did they actually make that change? Was it just new technology? Was it that they suddenly found all these brilliant engineers, or
No.
was it more complex?
It was more complex, you're right.
Okay.
It wasn't just about the tech, it was about building a whole culture of innovation, like top to bottom in the organization.
Okay.
And it really started with just kind of changing their mindset.
Okay.
Moving away from that top down,
Okay.
we know best
Right.
attitude that you see a lot in manufacturing, traditional manufacturing companies.
Okay, so let's say we were to walk into, Harley-Davidson headquarters
Yeah.
during this time.
Yeah.
What would we see that was different? Paint me a picture. What's going on?
Yeah, well, first of all, you wouldn't find yourself in some kind of fancy office tower.
Okay.
Harley's headquarters are actually in this, really unassuming red brick building.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a former factory.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a symbol of...
They're staying grounded?
Yes, exactly. Staying true to their roots.
Right.
But they also were changing how they did things.
Okay, but how did they get the people on board?
Right.
How did they create a culture where everybody felt like they could contribute?
Right. Well, one of the big things they did was they started using a much more collaborative decision-making process.
Okay.
So they moved away from that we know best attitude, and they really started to listen to the engineers, designers, the people actually building the motorcycles.
So they're tapping into everyone's wisdom.
Yes.
Not just a couple people at the top.
That's right.
Okay.
They realized that everyone has something valuable to contribute.
Yeah.
And, the best ideas can come from the most unexpected places.
Right.
And to actually make that collaboration work, they created some structures.
Okay.
And one of those was this group called, get this, the Product Development Leadership Learning Team.
What?
Yes.
PBL2T.
Yes.
Sounds like a spy group.
It kind of was like a secret society within Harley.
So what do they do?
It was leaders from different departments, and they would get together
Okay.
regularly to learn, to share knowledge,
Okay.
and to really challenge each other's assumptions about things.
Interesting.
They were very committed to always getting better,
Okay.
and they really saw themselves as leading this transformation.
Okay. Okay, so what did these meetings actually look like?
Right.
Were they all, PowerPoint slides and presentations, or was it a little more interesting?
It was definitely not your typical corporate meeting.
Okay.
Imagine chairs in a circle, notes from past sessions pinned up on the walls.
Okay.
And they actually started each meeting with this check-in process to help everyone, just clear their heads and focus.
Yeah.
It was really about making a safe space for everyone to talk openly and honestly.
So not just checking boxes.
No, right.
Actually being thoughtful.
Exactly.
Okay, so what kinds of things were they actually talking about?
Right.
Were they just brainstorming new ideas for products, or was there something more?
They actually went much deeper than that.
Okay.
They were very committed to really understanding how their business worked at its core.
Okay.
And they really liked this idea of the 5 disciplines of a learning organization.
Okay, so 5 disciplines. Break that down for me.
Okay, so the first one is systems thinking. And that's really about understanding how all the different pieces of a system
Okay.
all work together and affect each other.
Okay, so not just in a silo.
Great. The book uses this great analogy of the blind men and the elephant,
Oh, yeah.
right? So each one is touching a different part of the elephant.
Okay.
And they come up with these very different ideas about what it is.
Yeah.
But it's only when they put all those ideas together that they get a clear picture.
Okay.
And so Harley took this idea of systems thinking,
Okay.
and they started by really mapping out like all the stages of how they developed their product.
Okay.
And they were looking at all the key feedback loops.
Okay.
And they realized that a lot of their problems were because there were delays in getting feedback.
Uh-huh.
So like, for example, if they didn't catch a design problem until really late in the process, it caused a lot of delay.
Like a ripple effect.
Yes, exactly. A lot of rework.
Okay.
So they really had to identify those bottlenecks and figure out ways to speed up the flow of information.
Okay, so making sure the feedback loop is working.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool. So what's the second discipline?
Okay, so that one's called personal mastery.
Okay.
And it's really about always, trying to improve your skills and your knowledge.
Okay.
Really taking responsibility for learning new things and getting new perspectives.
So like always be learning.
Exactly.
Right. So not just being good at your job, but always wanting to get better.
That's right.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
What's the third discipline?
All right. So the third discipline is mental models.
Okay.
And these are the assumptions, and beliefs that we all have that shape how we see the world and make decisions.
So like our biases.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing those and being open to challenging them.
Right. Okay, I see. What's the fourth discipline?
Okay, so the fourth is building a shared vision.
Okay.
And it's not enough for people to just have their own goals. To really be effective as a team, you have to be aligned on what you're trying to accomplish.
Right, like a shared North Star.
Exactly.
Okay. What about the fifth one?
All right, so the fifth one is team learning.
Okay.
And that's about creating an environment where everybody feels safe to share their ideas,
Okay.
to disagree with each other,
Okay.
and to learn from their mistakes.
So like building that collective intelligence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So the PDL2T, really, they embodied all five of those disciplines.
Yes.
Okay. And that's how they started to overcome another big challenge they had.
Right.
And that is firefighting.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you're not talking about literal fires, are you?
No, no, no.
Okay.
We're talking about the kinds of fires that happen in the product development process.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's that feeling of constantly having to put out fires, to fix problems at the last minute.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like missed deadlines.
Yes.
Costs going way over.
Uh-huh.
Design flaws popping up when it's almost done.
Yes.
It's stressful.
It is very stressful.
Okay. So how did Harley-Davidson escape that cycle?
They realized that the firefighting wasn't just some unavoidable part of the process.
Okay.
It was actually a sign that there was a bigger problem.
Oh, okay.
They weren't getting feedback early enough.
Okay.
So they were only finding out about problems when it was really expensive and time-consuming to fix them.
Okay, so what did they do about it? Did they just have more meetings, more reports?
No.
Okay.
They took a much more strategic approach.
Okay.
They analyzed their entire development process.
Okay.
And they identified every point where there was a delay in feedback.
Okay.
And then they put systems in place to make sure that they were getting that feedback sooner
Okay.
and more often.
Right.
So that they could correct things
Yeah.
before they became big problems.
Like checks and balances.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Making
Yeah.
sure they were on the right track.
Right.
And they also realized that one of the biggest reasons they were having to do all this firefighting
Okay.
was the way they were handling their workload.
Okay.
They just took on too many projects at the same time.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Right. Just like juggling all these different things.
Exactly.
And you can't give anything the attention it deserves.
Yes. And so that meant that resources were stretched really thin and deadlines were always slipping.
So what did they do? Did they just start saying no to projects?
Well, they did start saying no more often,
Okay.
but they also created a system that they called bins.
Okay.
And this was basically a way to categorize all their projects
Okay.
based on, how big and complex they were.
Okay.
So the idea was to create a more even workflow
Okay.
and avoid those peaks and valleys
Right.
that were leading to all that firefighting.
So almost like having a to-do list.
Exactly.
Right. Where you break things down into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
You prioritize things. Okay.
That makes sense.
It's about finding that rhythm,
Yeah.
and a flow to your work, so you're not constantly feeling overwhelmed and reactive.
It's so smart. So how did they measure whether these changes were actually working?
Yeah.
Like, was it just that people were less stressed? Or did they see real results?
They actually saw some pretty remarkable results.
Okay. Like what?
Well, they were able to get new products to their customers much faster.
Oh,
And because they were catching those problems early on, their products were better quality, and it cost them less to make them.
so it's a win-win.
Yes, exactly.
Better work for the employees, better products for the customers.
That's right.
I love it.
And this success just really reinforced their belief in what they called knowledge-based product development.
Okay, I'm so intrigued.
Yeah.
So knowledge-based product development, we got to unpack that.
Yes.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, that's a great question, and one that I think we should dive into after we take a little break.
Sounds good.
Right.
Stay.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
So before the break, we were talking about how Harley-Davidson, they really shifted their approach to product development.
Yeah.
And, they got away from that reactive firefighting mode to be much more proactive,
Yeah. Right.
knowledge-driven.
Exactly.
So tell me more about this knowledge-based product development.
Yeah, so it's really about creating systems for capturing, and then actually using knowledge
Okay.
throughout the whole development process. So instead of just looking at the final product, you're looking at how you got there
Yeah.
and thinking about how you can learn and improve the whole time.
So it's like not just building a better motorcycle,
Right.
but building a better way to build the motorcycle.
Exactly.
Okay. So where did they get the inspiration for this? I mean, it seems like a pretty big change.
It is. And they actually got inspiration from some pretty unexpected places,
Okay, like where?
like the Wright brothers
Wait, the Wright brothers? Like the airplane guys?
Yeah.
Okay. And Toyota.
and Toyota.
But Toyota makes cars, not motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
So how did these companies influence Harley-Davidson?
Yeah, it might seem a little strange,
Yeah.
but when you look closer, there's some really interesting similarities.
Okay.
Both the Wright brothers and Toyota, they were pioneers in their fields.
Right.
And they both got there by focusing on, systematically learning and always improving.
Okay, so the Wright brothers, they documented all their experiments, right?
Yeah.
And they used all that knowledge to make their designs better, which eventually, led to the first flight.
Right, exactly. And Toyota, they're famous for lean manufacturing,
Right.
which is all about eliminating waste and always improving efficiency.
Okay. So Harley-Davidson realized they could apply those same ideas to motorcycle design.
Exactly.
All right.
They saw that if they could figure out how to capture and use knowledge,
Okay.
they could work faster, they could make fewer mistakes, and they could make better motorcycles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about shifting from a very linear process
Right.
to something more cyclical,
Yes.
where you're learning at every stage.
Exactly.
So how did they actually make that happen?
Well, one of the big changes was going from a sequential development process
Okay.
to a much more concurrent approach.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So instead of, finishing one stage and then moving to the next, they started working on different parts of the design
Okay.
at the same time.
So instead of designing the engine and then the frame and then the body,
Right.
they're doing all those things at once.
Exactly. Yeah. And it sounds kind of chaotic,
Yeah.
but it actually helped them find problems much earlier.
Right. Because if you wait till the end
Right.
to put it all together,
Yeah.
you might realize something doesn't fit.
Exactly. And then you have to go back and redesign a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, which is expensive and takes a lot of time.
It is. And so by working concurrently, they could test different options and make sure everything was compatible before they went too far.
Okay.
And it's similar to what Toyota calls set-based concurrent development.
Set-based concurrent development.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's really about keeping your options open for as long as possible.
Okay.
So instead of choosing one design really early on,
Right.
you explore a bunch of different possibilities at the same time.
Okay.
So you can learn more about the design space, and then you can make better choices later.
Okay, so it's kind of like brainstorming, but on a much bigger scale.
Yeah,
You're not just brainstorming ideas, you're building prototypes and testing them.
exactly.
Okay, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
So they're taking these ideas from the Wright brothers and Toyota.
Uh-huh.
They're working on everything at the same time.
Right.
They're exploring multiple options. What other tools are they using?
Well, they really focused on visual management. They realized that a lot of really valuable information was just getting lost, in emails and meeting notes.
Yeah.
So they started creating these visual representations of their work,
Okay.
like whiteboards, charts, diagrams, that kind of thing.
So everyone can see what's going on.
Exactly, and make it more accessible to everyone.
Okay.
And they actually created a dedicated space that they called the ubeya.
The ubeya.
Yeah. It's a Japanese word that basically means big room.
Okay.
And it was basically a war room for product development.
Okay.
So they would cover the walls with charts and graphs and diagrams, all tracking the progress of each project.
Okay.
They would even bring in physical prototypes
Oh, wow.
that people could see them and touch them.
So everyone can really understand.
Yes.
Okay, so this visual environment, that really helps everyone stay on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
And probably helps them find problems early on.
Yes.
Okay. But it wasn't just about tracking progress, was it?
No, it was also about making it easier for people to communicate and collaborate.
Okay.
So the ubeya became this central place where people from all the different departments could come together,
Yeah.
share ideas, and work through those problems.
So it was a place where everybody was learning both individually
Right.
and as a group.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So how did they make sure that all this knowledge was actually captured and then reused?
Right. So they really focused on creating systems for that.
Okay.
They created standardized templates, for documenting lessons learned.
Okay.
And then they made online databases where people could share best practices and technical information.
So they're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Exactly.
Okay, so this focus on capturing and reusing knowledge, that's really key to them being able to speed up their development process
Right.
and make fewer mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, it's all starting to make sense now.
Yeah.
So they're creating this culture of learning
Yeah.
and continuous improvement,
Uh-huh.
not just in the product development team,
Yeah.
but in the whole company.
Yeah.
And that cultural shift, that was just as important as all the technical stuff they were doing?
Yes, it was. They realized that to really be innovative, they had to create this environment
Okay.
where people felt safe to experiment,
Okay.
take risks, learn from their mistakes.
So a safe space to innovate
Exactly.
where people aren't afraid to fail.
That's right.
Okay. And that ties into something else we talk about, those pull events. So remind me, what are those again?
Yeah, so pull events are basically like planned milestones
Okay.
that help keep the development process moving forward.
Okay.
So instead of just having a fixed schedule, with deadlines, they created these events
Okay.
where teams would get together and show their progress on a specific part of the project.
Okay. So it creates urgency,
Yes.
but in a more collaborative way. Right.
It's less stressful than just having deadlines hanging over your head all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the pull events were also a chance for everyone to learn and share knowledge.
Okay.
Teams would present what they were working on, they'd get feedback from other teams,
Yeah.
and they could learn from what other people were doing.
So again, building that collective intelligence.
Exactly.
Okay. So what about all those inevitable problems that pop up?
Mm-hmm.
How did they deal with that?
So they actually had a system in place for that, too.
Okay.
They called it help chains.
Help chains. Okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
Basically, it's like a set way of escalating and resolving problems.
Okay.
So instead of just hoping that somebody would notice the problem and fix it,
Yeah.
they had a very clear path for how to identify
Okay.
and deal with problems quickly.
Okay.
So everyone knew who was responsible.
Right. So like a chain of command,
It is like that.
but not in a bureaucratic way.
Right, exactly. It's about making sure that problems get to the right people quickly
Right.
and that everyone knows what to do. And they also used this really simple but effective tool
Okay.
called the red, a yellow, green report.
Okay.
Yay.
I can see how that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Red means there's a problem. Yellow means we're okay.
Yeah.
But there might be some risks. And green means everything's good.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that simple visual system helped them quickly figure out which projects needed attention,
Okay.
and then they could allocate their resources accordingly.
Okay. So all these things came together to create this, comprehensive approach
Yeah.
to knowledge-based product development.
Right.
And it sounds like they thought about every single detail,
They did.
from how they organize their work to how they communicate it.
Yeah.
Amazing. And the results, those speak for themselves.
Yeah, I
Right?
do.
They were able to, get new products out faster, the quality was better,
Mm-hmm.
and it cost them less.
That's right.
So it wasn't just about making a better work environment.
No.
It was about real business results.
Yes.
So what does this all mean for those of us who aren't designing motorcycles?
Right.
can we actually use these ideas in other industries and companies?
That's a great question, and one that we should explore a little bit further.
Okay. Okay, so we were talking about how Harley-Davidson made all these changes, right?
Yeah.
To how they develop new products. But the question is, can we take these lessons and, apply them to our own work?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the specifics will be different depending on what you do,
Right.
but the big ideas, those apply to everyone.
Okay, so like creating that culture of learning,
Right.
being more systematic about how you solve problems,
Yes.
encouraging people to share what they know.
Yeah. Those are all things anyone can do.
Okay. So how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
Like, where do we even start?
Well, I think the most important thing is to start thinking about developing a product as a learning process.
Okay.
Not just like, building a thing.
Okay.
It's about always looking for feedback,
Okay.
testing new ideas. Okay.
And then writing down what you learn.
So it's not just about getting the product finished.
Right.
It's about making the process better over time.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So, maybe that means you set aside some time to brainstorm or build some prototypes.
Oh.
Or maybe you create a way for everybody to share what they learned.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just try to build a more collaborative culture.
Right. Where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're building that feedback loop into everything.
Exactly. You're always learning and improving.
Okay, so what else? What else can we take away from this?
Visual management is really important.
Okay.
How can you make information more visible
Okay.
so everybody can see it and understand it?
Okay, so Harley-Davidson had that UBEA,
Yeah.
right? That big room where they had all the charts and graphs and stuff. But
Right.
what if you don't have a room like that? Right. Well, even something as simple as a whiteboard can be a great way to, get ideas out there.
Okay.
Or to map out how a process works.
Okay.
Or just to keep track of progress.
Okay.
You can also use online tools.
Right.
Like, Kanban boards
Okay.
or project management software.
Right.
That helps you visualize the work.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
So making the invisible visible.
Yeah. And it's not just about making things look nice.
Right.
It's about using those visuals to help people talk to each other,
Right.
work together, and solve problems.
Okay. What about that idea of a shared vision?
Yeah. That's really important too.
Right. Like, how do we create that in our own teams?
Well, it starts with having honest conversations about, what are your goals?
Okay.
What are your values?
Yeah.
What are your priorities?
Yeah.
You have to make sure everybody understands the big picture
Right.
and how their work fits into that.
Okay. And you have to be willing to change your vision if things change.
Right. You have to be flexible.
Exactly. So you have that North Star.
Yeah.
But you can also adjust course.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So creating this culture of innovation,
Yeah.
that's about more than just tools, isn't it?
It is. It's about a mindset. It's about always wanting to get better.
Okay. But how do you create that environment?
Right.
Like, in a lot of places, failure is seen as a bad thing.
Yeah. And that's where leadership comes in.
Okay.
The leaders have to set the example
Okay.
by being open to new ideas,
Okay.
being willing to admit when they were wrong
Okay.
and celebrating successes and failures because both are opportunities to learn.
So making it safe for people to speak up,
Yes.
to share their ideas, to take risks.
Yeah. They have to know it's okay to make mistakes.
Right.
And then you have to have systems in place that encourage people to learn.
Okay.
So, maybe that's setting aside time for professional development.
Right.
Or maybe it's creating mentorship programs. Or maybe it's just celebrating those small wins.
Right. So it's about recognizing that learning never stops.
Yeah.
It's not just something you do in school.
Right.
It's something you do all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive into, Harley-Davidson and knowledge-based product development, what's the one thing you want people to remember?
I think the biggest thing is that innovation isn't just about having great ideas.
Okay.
It's about creating a system
Okay.
that lets those ideas come to life.
Okay.
And that system needs to be based on learning, collaboration, and always trying to get better.
Beautifully said. So for everyone listening, our question for you is this. What can you do today
Yeah.
to start building a more innovative culture?
Yeah.
Maybe it's scheduling a brainstorming session.
Right.
Maybe it's setting up one of those Kanban boards.
Right.
Maybe it's just talking to your colleagues about how you could all work better together.
Yeah. Every journey starts with one step. So now's the time to start building your innovation engine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Harley-Davidson.
Yeah.
and the power of knowledge-based product development. We hope you got some great ideas
Yeah,
that you can use in your own work and life.
that's right.
Until next time, keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep innovating.
That's right.